Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke, and I'm so glad you're back. For those of you that have been following me for way too many decades, welcome back. If you're new to the show, welcome. I know you're going to walk away with great information. I am interviewing the best minds in our industry, making sure that we have all of the tools to be able to do our jobs and learn about our health and the health of the people that we work with every single day, because it's all about information and education. My guest today, Ric Scalzo, is back with us, and we're going to be starting something new today. I'm very excited. We're going to be doing a series of shows, podcasts on individual herbs. I want everybody to be able to tune in to each segment and be able to walk away from that segment with a full understanding of the herb, history of the herb, what it's been used for, information that has been passed down, changes, new philosophies, maybe new delivery systems, new growing methods, so that when you walk away from that podcast, you'll have a full understanding of that herb. And we have many of these. Obviously, our first one today, we have to start with turmeric. So we're going to be talking about that today. But let me give you a little background on my guest. Ric Scalzo began his journey into herbal and naturopathic medicine in 1980, studying naturopathic herbal medicine, eclectic herbal medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and various diagnostic practices. He received a master's degree in herbal medicine from the School of Herbal Medicine and an honorary degree of naturopathic medicine from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. Renowned for his innovations in herbal medicine and personal commitment to retaining herbal integrity, today Ric continues to innovate herbal remedies and is a leader in the movement to integrate regenerative agriculture into the world of herbal medicine. Help me welcome my guest. Hey, Ric, how are you?
Hi, Jeff. Wonderful to be back again. Thank you for having.
So glad to have you back again. You've been traveling a little bit. I know that you've been on the road, and it's so good. We haven't been able to connect that much, but I'm so happy to have you back. You've been kind of bouncing all over the planet for the last couple months.
All over from, we've been doing this documentary or filming around the cultures where longevity is more prevalent. So we've been doing a lot of filming in different parts of Italy, which are known to have two distinct blue zones. And I just got back from China, which I'm fascinated about, how the Chinese culture incorporates wellness and, such an ancient tradition in traditional Chinese medicine into the life and into the foods of Chinese people. So, yeah, I'm very, it's just a wonderful way of me gaining enlightenment and knowledge about these wellness practices.
And jet lag. Of course.
Yeah, jet lag.
So, something that's always perplexed me, you and I have both been in the industry well over 4 decades. And, something that's always kind of intrigued me is how when something that has been used for 100, 1,000 or more years in a part of the world, and it comes here to the United States, it seems that sometimes it's played up as it's a brand new discovery. And there's been so much information and research on it that sometimes we're dealing with just maybe discovering it now, and we really need to reach back into history to get a better understanding of how it's been used and, how it originated. And I think turmeric is a great place for us to start. So I'd love to start with turmeric and right at maybe the very beginning, where it really started and, kind of what we've learned along the way.
Yeah, well, this is a herb, a root, a plant that comes to us from Asia and from different parts of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and has gradually found its way through into China and into India. And many of us, learned about turmeric from its use in India as a nice addition to making curries. And that's how I originally learned about it when I was much, much younger, incorporating turmeric powder into my curries. But, it has, worked its way into our supplement industry, quite some time ago. and it has evolved in the way it is now extracted and prepared for dietary supplements. But I'm always impressed with turmeric because I happen to grow it on our farm in Costa Rica. So what impresses me is just really seeing how you can grow turmeric and understanding turmeric the way I do these days, and now growing it regeneratively has brought a whole new kind of reality on what I've come to learn about turmeric.
Well, I think that, people are hearing about turmeric, and, we live in this world today where, I heard a stat the other day. It says it was like 50 or 60 years ago, most people, these terrible diseases was a very small percentage of the population. Of today, it's a very large portion of the population. And, 50, 60 years ago, most of the inflammatory diseases that were out there afflicted a very small part of the population, but mostly older. And today, it's kind of the spectrum is spread through a lot of different age groups and generations. And we're seeing a lot of problems. So a lot of people, when they hear turmeric, I think the first thing they think about is, I've been hearing about pain relief. I've been hearing about anti-inflammatory properties and free radical scavenging properties and things like that. And I think there's a lot of parts of turmeric that maybe people are not aware of, because it really is a multi-level benefiting product in so many areas of our health and well-being, both preventively and medicinally.
Yeah, it sure is. And in my world now, where I'm so connected to healthcare providers, I always talk about what is life like after COVID for you, and a lot of people still are struggling, and I find that one of the the things that COVID did to our society is it left us into a reactive state with regards to our immune system. And it has brought a lot of challenges in our body to sustain sort of an even level of homeostasis or equilibrium, or modulation of our immune function. And a lot of people are challenged by that these days. So when you talk about the benefits of turmeric on helping to support a healthy inflammatory response, this is something that I think we can have a renewed conversation about how important it is today to support a renewed a renewed response to our inflammatory expression.
Well, and to that point, I think there was a time when people would talk about turmeric using it only if you needed it. And it really didn't get the attention preventively as I think it really needs, because I know many people today that have adopted the usage and the regimen of using turmeric on an ongoing basis, and they may not have any of the situations that traditionally people think it's only used for, but they're using it preventively. If you study some of the cultures out there, many of them have had this in their life their entire life. So it's not just something you wait to use. I think it's something we need to use.
And sometimes, I'm a medical herbalist, and I have had opportunities to use certain plants in times of emergency.
Mhm.
And I just want to share with you, before we even get into the gist of turmeric, talking about cultivation, harvest, and all of that. This was a long time ago, many years ago. I was on my farm, and I happened to be kneeling down on the ground and close to an area where wood was piled up, and I got bit by a brown recluse spider on
Oh
my
my.
on my leg. Yeah, and I went back that evening because there was tremendous swelling, which at that point it was about the size of a baseball. And I thought, what do I have where I can treat this? And all I had was turmeric, and so I made up a turmeric paste.
Mhm.
And I thought, if anything can help me overnight until I can get medical attention, this would. So I mixed turmeric with honey, and I made it into a paste, and I applied it quite thickly onto this area that was so swollen. And then I wrapped it with gauze, and pretty heavily. And when I woke up in the morning, all that swelling and inflammation was gone.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, I've just learned a big lesson here about, and I thought, gosh, what happened? And I know turmeric has these wonderful antimicrobial actions and also anti-inflammatory actions. And you mentioned a bit about pain. But I never seen it kind of take these three functions that were necessary for me at this moment and apply its actions all simultaneously.
Wow. I,
And
I,
I never looked back on that spider bite. It was pretty amazing.
I'm amazed. I mean, it makes sense and I understand it, but I wouldn't have thought of it. So, I mean, kudos for thinking about it and also mixing it with honey because people don't know the wonderful benefits and antibacterial, antimicrobial benefits of honey
Yeah,
for
well,
infection.
I needed a good carrier, and honey was a good carrier.
Hmm.
Sometimes in my world as a herbalist, you're kind of challenged to think on the spot about,
Yes,
well, what do I have that might help me? And that was what I had, and
I love
I
it.
kind of like that.
I do too. I think it's amazing. I have heard of people using it as a paste like on a gum infection and things like that. I've had a lady that actually said she used it on a very bad bruise and she mixed hers with coconut oil, sent me a letter one time and said that it almost reduced it like overnight,
Yeah,
but within a couple days. And so, but this is on a bite. That's really amazing. We have a lot of brown recluse out here in Nevada,
yeah,
and some people try to treat it as it's nothing and then they wait too long and then it's major problems.
exactly. So I was fortunate. I
Hmm.
acted quick, and I had a really good response. So, I'm praising, turmeric all the time in terms of, when, why, and how I should use it.
Let's talk a little bit about the growth of turmeric on a regenerative farm.
Yeah.
Um, when is it best planted, and what is the period of time it grows before harvest?
Okay. So, in order to understand how we grow it, let's talk
Hmm.
about where the seed comes from.
Okay.
And so, the seed selection for turmeric is essentially the harvest. So, when you harvest turmeric, you get these turmeric tubers or fingers. We call them
Hmm.
rhizomes. But you also get on any one big cluster of turmeric root, you get a number of what's called mother roots, and they're clusters of more like a ball with tendrils coming off of it,
Okay.
and that mother root is the seed for next year's planting. So on any
Oh.
given single um, plant of turmeric, there may be 3 or 4 or 5 mother roots that ultimately become our seed stock for the following year. So we take all of that off and we put it aside, and we harvest time where I grow in Costa Rica, harvest time is usually starting in January, and then next season planting time is usually in March, April. So we cure it for about 3 months and then we plant it. And so that's how it's propagated through its own production of seed, underground. Let's call it seed, but it's really mother root.
So it provides for its own survival.
Mm-hmm. It does.
When you take those, do you have to dry them, or are they just stored?
They're stored in a cool, dry
Okay.
environment, and just protected so that they don't start to sprout out. But it's over the course of a complete field of turmeric harvest, you can collect a lot of mother roots and basically propagate very nicely, year after year without adding new turmeric stock to your inventory. But then you've got all this wonderful harvest, which is the turmeric tubers or fingers or rhizomes, and that's what we clean and slice and use for our product line. And over the last 2 years now, we have moved from typical organic cultivation to regenerative organic cultivation. And what does that mean? That means that we put special attention on tending to the soil food web. and to special attention to grow turmeric with companion plants. So there's more density of greenery on top of the soil. And that has a wonderful benefit of sequestering carbon from the atmosphere back into the soil. And carbon actually becomes then a source of providing nutrients for the microbiome in the soil to carry, so the beneficial bacteria and fungi feed off of the carbon, and they then are more able to sequester nutrients in the soil and carry those nutrients into the roots. And therefore you get more, what we're now calling more nutrient density in the crop.
Does that green cover also help to aid in holding the moisture in the ground?
Yeah, it does a lot of things. It helps to prevent, it holds moisture, helps prevent erosion. And, it also, if there's, what's really interesting is if there's any pathogenic kind of fungi in the soil, like Ralstonia or Fusarium, then those types of pathogens will have more of an affinity for the first succession of root growth from weeds or from the companion cover that we plant. And so what it does is it creates sort of a, how should I say it? It enables the pathogens to get distracted away from the roots of turmeric onto what is typically the first succession of growth, and turmeric would be the second succession, and not harm or injure our turmeric roots. So that's really another benefit of having, a little bit of weed and a little bit of companion planting.
Now, let's talk crop rotation. Now, do you plant turmeric in the same place every year, or do you move it?
We tend to move it.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to, although I have to tell you, we tend to move it is the right terminology, because nature doesn't want the way it's harvested. There's always little pieces of rhizomes still left in the soil.
Okay.
So, although we tend to move it, nature tends to regrow it in the same location.
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
So if some of those little ones slip through the cracks, so to say, are they harvested as well?
If it depends. If that field is dormant for the following season, we'll just let them grow. But if we're planting holy basil or some other crop in that particular field, we'll have to, weed them out. Otherwise, they'll take over.
So when people think about turmeric, obviously I've been taking turmeric for a long time, and I'm getting very, very excited about your regenerative turmeric that's coming next year, first quarter. And I think it's going to be phenomenal. Who should think about using turmeric? I mean, the average person walking into a health food store, who is someone that should be approaching turmeric and asking questions about it?
I think and I'm talking about how we've become more complex as a society in our world of stress, in our world of inflammation, in our world of processed foods, in our world of influencers that can kind of throw us off our wellness journey. And they're prevalent. Talk about the microplastics in our water and food now that are penetrating water and foods and getting into our system, and talk about the agrochemicals that typically show up. Talk about all the influencers, like what is that chemical that's used on corn in you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
But anyway, it evaporates, or it tends to evaporate into the atmosphere and then rain down back on crops all over the country. So we're getting exposure from that agrochemical. And then, all the stressors, all the inflammatory patterns that are in our lifestyle today. Turmeric serves up a wonderful opportunity to protect the body in a way that I don't know if any other herb singularly can do. So when we talk about all its benefits, we can shed some light on that. But so who should take turmeric? I think really every adult should take turmeric.
I think so too. Yeah, I just think that it makes perfect sense. And I have some friends that live in China. I have some friends in India, and they were raised there. And it's amazing how when they talk about turmeric, they talk about turmeric like people in this country talk about French fries, and it's just part of the American diet over there. It's part of the culture, but it's part of their food.
And it's
And
um, interesting to note that in that culture where turmeric is used every day in curries, the incidences of colorectal disorders are much lower than they are here in the West.
our diets are so horrendous. It's interesting how the fast food, processed food companies have made absolutely worthless, tasteless, terrible food taste really good, and people almost crave those diets. And once they get away from it for a period of time, they realize that there are wonderful things that they could be eating healthy. But when you're stuck in that rut, you're privy to it's just what it is, and people have to actually make an attempt and make an effort to pull themselves away from unhealthy eating.
Yeah. And growing turmeric regeneratively, we have found that we can really increase the nutrient densities of turmeric, which are largely in our world the curcumins or curcuminoids, and the more volatile components called turmerones, and the volatile oils. We have found that regenerative farming of turmeric greatly increases these active principles of turmeric. The curcumin is what gives turmeric its yellow color, by the way. And so when you look at the turmeric regeneratively grown, it's got that deep, actually orange color to it, deeply orange, and you know that it's loaded with curcuminoids. And that's what we try to capture when we extract turmeric, are these bioactive molecules. And extraction is typically done with organic grain alcohol or organic alcohol from sugarcane, and then the alcohol is removed after the herb is extracted. But the point I want to make here is turmeric is multifaceted biochemical plant, meaning that it has a broad spectrum of beneficial bioactive molecules, not just curcumin and not just turmerones and not just volatile oils, but there are many other bioactive molecules, which I call synergists to these primary molecules, that act to engage turmeric beneficially in the body. And this is important because so much of the turmeric product in the market is purified and structurally elucidated and isolated to a specific class of only curcumin molecules, leaving everything else behind. So I'm a big fan of full spectrum use of healing plants. And turmeric to me is a really good example of why we should look for a full spectrum type of turmeric to include in our daily diet.
So speaking regeneratively, could you touch a little bit on the idea of the yield? Obviously, when you're doing regenerative farming, not only is the quality and the density and the benefits of the crops that are being cultivated, does it increase and become more beneficial, but are we able to get more out of the crops? I mean, does the yield increase?
Well, we did find that on our farm. We went from growing turmeric organically. We were getting 15,000 kilograms of turmeric root per hectare. That's about 2.5 acres. And then when we converted to regenerative farming, we got 80,000 kilos per hectare.
Wow.
So what is that, a 5-fold increase in the biomass?
That's huge. It's huge.
That is huge. I never would have expected that. But that's the promise of regenerative farming, is not just increased nutrient density, but increased biomass yield.
Well, the wonderful thing is, the planet, of course, is still growing. The population is growing, and food quality and quantity is something that has to be looked at. And the idea of doing regenerative agriculture, because of if it's done correctly, the yield would give better crops, more high quality crops. So, I mean, this is something that is not just something that can be political speak anymore, and it can't just be a great conversation. And you can't walk out in your yard and hug a tree and say, "I'm saving the world." No, you need to do something. And now we're at the point where we have no choice. We need to make a
Yeah.
forward motion
And as
toward
a
this.
farmer, you really can't turn away from organic, regenerative organic anymore, because with those kind of yields, you're
Mhm.
getting a much better return as a farmer on your effort. So, everybody benefits, and we need to draw carbon down.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. We need to draw carbon down. So this is a great way. Any opportunity agriculturally we can do regenerative farming, we should be doing it.
So let's talk about some of the benefits, of turmeric. Obviously, we talked about a few already, but this is something that I think people will be, quite astounded at the categories and the levels of benefit that can be brought about by using a very good quality, and in this case, a regeneratively grown turmeric, what it can do for the body. And I mean, I've seen dramatic changes in my world, and even in areas that I didn't think I had an issue with. And but all of a sudden I noticed there were changes coming in, so I was pleased. So where do we start with benefits?
Well, one thing I can ask the listeners to be aware of is, firstly, look for full spectrum extracts of turmeric, because you will get a broader range of benefit. Secondly, when you consume turmeric, think about consuming turmeric with black pepper, because the black pepper will help to increase the absorption of the curcumins by over 2,000%. Thirdly, another way you can increase absorption is take your turmeric with a meal that includes healthy fats. And I'm thinking of ghee or olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, or avocados. Because turmeric is a fat soluble, curcumins are fat soluble ingredients, are molecules. So in that way, if you use full spectrum, if you take it with healthy fats, and you use these, and also, of course, try to find regenerative grown turmeric, which will give you more nutrient density to your turmeric. If you do all that, then you're setting yourself up with great benefit from turmeric. So in terms of the benefit, I would say, one of the important things is its antioxidant protection. It is a flavonoid, and flavonoids in nature are molecules that have color. They have orange, yellow, red color, and sometimes purple. But the orange, red, yellow types of plant materials usually are flavonoid dense. Curcumin is flavonoid dense. Our turmeric is flavonoid dense with curcumin in it. So flavonoids are antioxidant by nature, and what I mean by that is they tend to protect the body from free radical oxidation. The substances that are generated in our body that can do damage to cells and tissues in our body. So when you talk about who should take turmeric, and I said every adult should take turmeric, for this sole reason of having more antioxidant protection in our body against free radical damage, which helps to slow down the aging process. So this is something that I think is first and foremost benefit of turmeric, is its antioxidant role. I think we could stop here, and then I would be satisfied. But let's go on, because there's a lot of
Please,
benefits.
please.
You know, and I think, the impact that turmeric has on supporting a healthy inflammatory response in our body. And when we talk about inflammation, Jeff, we need to understand that there's a couple of sides to inflammation. So let's talk about inflammatory equilibrium. And sometimes when our body is overstressed, we trigger an inflammatory response. And this is part of the healing process. But in a good adaptive physiology, that kind of inflammatory response should quiet down back to a state of equilibrium. But in some people, it doesn't, Jeff. Some people, it stays reactive. And we oftentimes associate this with an autoimmune kind of response.
Okay.
So people who constantly are in a reactive inflammatory response, and as I said earlier, post-COVID, a lot of us are in a reactive inflammatory response. We need something to modulate the inflammation down back to a state of equilibrium. And then there are others who have an immune function which is depressed, and we need something to build it back up to a state of equilibrium. Turmeric can also serve in that role as well. So, what we can say is the role of turmeric with inflammation or supporting a healthy inflammatory response is that it is an immunomodulator. And I particularly think how important it is today for those of us who have sustained a higher level of immune reactivity, almost as though our immune systems have been hijacked by the events of 2020 to 2022. And now we're constantly, overcharged with our immune system. And that means we are overcharged with inflammation. And now we have to quiet it down. And that quiets down the inflammation.
And this is not just something that is affecting older adults. I mean, it's across the board. I mean, even younger people today. I mean, I'm seeing things now that I never saw when I was first in the industry, but we're seeing these levels of this reactiveness and in much younger people, and that's not healthy.
It's even more so in younger people, and the phenomena of what's going on is just what I'm saying is hyperreactivity, hijacking of our immune response, inducing these kind of expressions of our inflammatory response. So this is so important today, and when you look at just the effect it has on our immune system, how some of these inflammatory cytokines that are triggered, and like NF-kappa beta and other cytokines that are associated with inflammation, can quiet these down and normalize this response in the body using turmeric.
It's amazing. And I've read books on turmeric that were written many, many years ago, and they were basically citing, almost scroll work of turmeric from so far back. And, this knowledge has been there, and obviously we've been developing on it, and obviously the need and the essential time of using it has become more visible today because we have not taken care of ourselves. We have not, we've been writing checks on bank accounts that have no money in it. Our bodies we keep pushing and pushing and expecting the body to react differently, but we're not taking responsibility for, to your point, rebuilding and balancing like we need to do. And it's quite amazing when people start using, turmeric and they notice the change. That's one of my favorite things about this industry is being able to work with people and hearing back from them what a difference it made in their world.
Jeff, I just received, and I shared them with you a couple of days ago, some results from the institute where we do a lot of our research. And what we did is we looked at turmeric's effect on liposaccharide LPS-induced inflammation, particularly with an inflammatory cytokine like interleukin-6. And what we found that that LPS lipopolysaccharides induced this inflammatory cytokine, and when you ingest turmeric, you after 45 minutes you have zero levels of this inflammatory cytokine in your bloodstream. So this was done in vitro, obviously that means outside of the human body, but it's a good indicator of the role of turmeric in terms of some of the effects it can have on supporting a healthy inflammatory response. So, when science shows up to give us direction, it's really something I pay attention to. And this was really intriguing, very compelling, to teach me yet another thing about how turmeric is working in the body.
It seems like every time I think people are starting to get a grip and a grasp on how to live a healthier lifestyle, it seems like it lasts for a short period of time. And then, we all sidestep the path. We all bobble and hit hurdles and stepping stones along the way. And I just think eventually we hopefully have those aha moments and we decide that it's time, but I thank you for basically, bringing the information out, because I think information and education, been always my heart, because I think that when people have more information, they can make better, wiser, healthier decisions. Otherwise, there's a lot of guessing going on, and guessing just usually gets us in trouble.
Yeah. Do we have time to talk a little bit more about some of these benefits?
Absolutely.
Because
the floor is yours.
There's a few other things that, are side benefits of taking turmeric. One is that it's neurotropic, which means that it has a wonderful effect on your brain activity. And we definitely notice that turmeric can help to enhance mood. And but aside from that, it may tend to kind of block or at least retard the development of abnormal proteins in the brain, which contribute to cognitive dysfunction. And for that reason, as we age, and we want to protect our cognitive, state of well-being, it makes sense to take turmeric day and night. That this is something we should all take as we go through the aging process.
It's important, and we're seeing so many more incidences today of cognitive problems. And, I remember at a time when it was basically a geriatric kind of category of condition, and it's not anymore. We can blame many different issues. We can blame environment and, diet and stress and lack of rest and insomnia and all these other things. But nonetheless, the problem has still trickled down to many different generations. And, I wish when I was 20, I had started taking turmeric. I wish I had, but I mean, today's the day to start. I mean, it's always do it today.
The day to start. And, soon we'll have a wonderful supplement that I think I personally would be very, very proud to share with people in terms of how it's grown and how it's harvested, how it's extracted, how it's prepared, and how it's tested and delivered. So another role of turmeric is to support healthy heart function. In this context, it may improve the lining of the blood vessels and make them more supple, and make the blood vessels, have less susceptibility to feeling pressure and less susceptibility for clotting within the blood vessels. So it can reduce the suppleness of the blood vessels in the body by taking, and flavonoids in general tend to do this anyway, but turmeric is just another reason why you might want to take turmeric for that purpose. And then just longevity. I like to think that turmeric is one of these things that can carry us into a health span and lifespan that's worthy of saying, yes, I did it right. And for a lot of different reasons, it can protect. There's a scientific medical term with turmeric called helps to reduce angiogenesis, and this is the reduction of blood supply to abnormal cells in the body that are becoming tumorous. So by reducing angiogenesis, we don't get we don't feed these abnormal cells. And so that's another way of saying, as I'm living out my life, what am I able to do to increase in my health span and my lifespan? That's another benefit of turmeric.
And
So,
quality and quantity.
mhm.
So that's important, because I do know many people out there today being band-aided and held together by pharmaceutical drugs, and there's no quality of life there. I mean, I want to live a long time. My grandmother lived well into her 90s. My mother's 90. So I mean, I would like to be able to have those years, but I also want to be able to celebrate it with a quality of life at the same time.
Yeah. And a lot of these compounds in turmeric are antimicrobial, antibacterial. So I tend to use turmeric for this reason as well. And when I'm looking at the seasonal applications of turmeric in the springtime, it's very good to help stabilize mast cells, which are those cells that are reactive to different pollens and allergens in the environment. And so we may find benefit there. So the list can go on and on, but I think you're getting a picture of how robust turmeric is and how much of a benefit it really is.
So here's a question. The cultures that use turmeric in their food every single day, do they also supplement it, or is it in their food and that's their delivery?
I think cultures that use turmeric in their curries and soups and rice every day, I think that's how they use it.
Okay.
And they typically use it with other spices, including black pepper. They know how to use it, adding a healthy fat like ghee or coconut oil to it. And so it gets absorbed properly. And every day is, people ask me, since I'm so much into, trying to tell the story of a regenerative life these days, people ask me, when do you start? And I tend to say, you don't start becoming a centenarian at 70 or 80 years old.
No.
You start this very moment, and this moment could be when you're in your 20s and 30s or 40s. If you have that awareness of how important it is for long life. But more importantly, I'm liking to tell people that being a centenarian, having a long lifespan, should be accompanied with having a long health span. And this is one of the reasons why turmeric shows up today to support a health span.
Well, I love the information that's coming out, today. People are getting much more information. And the reason that I wanted to do this series with you particularly is because people can get a better understanding. I mean, they're hearing about turmeric and ashwagandha and bacopa and all these herbs, but they're probably getting little bits of information. I want people to be able to walk away like today. This is a lot of information. This is how you learn.
Yeah.
And, I know some people that'll go back and listen to this podcast more than once, and that's okay. Because, you want to understand the things that you're using. You want to understand the things that are available. And you want to understand the things that you're having conversations about, especially if you're working in the industry. You want to have a really good understanding to have those very detailed, sometimes passionate and informative conversations. And having a lot of information under your belt is what it's all about. You know me, every time that we're in a meeting and you're talking, I'm writing things down. I'm always writing things down because there's bits and pieces of things that I can reuse because I'm a sponge. I mean, I learn from all the people that I'm around because then I just regurgitate it back out because it's such good information and it's something that I may not have thought of or it's something I might have known and forgot because, they say we forget more than we remember, but it's a reminder because somebody may be hearing it from you or from me for the very first time. And it could be that piece of knowledge that makes a difference in their own personal health or what they're teaching other people about their personal health.
Yeah. Well said. It's beautiful.
Well, I think this is a great episode 1. Remember, everybody, we're going to have a full series of these, and I think you're going to absolutely love them. Ric has been in the industry a very long time, and he brings amazing amounts of knowledge. But above and beyond that, he brings such a kind passion and a quest for having everybody have a fulfilled and balanced and healthy and regenerative life. And you're going to learn that more and more after all the episodes. Ric, would you mind leaving everybody with a thought for the day?
Yeah, I think I love to leave people with the thought of, what does it take to be truly healthy? And, in my world, in my travels, trying to search for what it really means to live a regenerative life, it's all about nourish, connect, and move. And, those are the three things I'd like to leave people to think about. How do you nourish your body with food and with supplements like turmeric? How do you connect and sustain your social connections? And how do you maintain your purpose in life? And how do you stay active as you age? What kind of movement is really supporting your well-being? Those are the three pillars of longevity: nourish, connect, and move. So think about it. And try to apply those principles into your life.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're tuning in right now and you've enjoyed this, please tell a friend. Bring them all on board, because we all need to pay things forward. If you can pay health forward to the people in your life, you're going to be better for it, and they are definitely going to be better for it. Remember to go to my website, drjeffreyburke.com, tap on the Honest Health logo, and you'll go to Spotify, where you can listen to the audio version of the podcast. If you tap on the YouTube logo, you'll be able to watch the interview and enjoy it that way as well. Some people like audio, some people like visual. We've got them both there. Make sure to like and follow, and bring your friends, because our mission is to bring great information, the best information from the best minds in the industry, so you can be better and healthier, because we want everybody to get healthy, be healthy, and stay healthy. Ric, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day, everyone. God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.